Okay, guys, this version of Academy is gonna be a little different, but just a little. I'm gonna talk about squadrons. You see, when I play vehicles, I never, I never use squadrons. Personally, I'm against it. Uh, Not to say I don't have a problem with other people using it. It just doesn't work with my philosophy of combat, the way I fight, right? But let's be honest. There's more than one way to do this. There isn't one right way in combat. There never is. If that was the case, you'd always be able to predict the winner of any given engagement. So, let's talk about squadrons, the good and the bad. Excuse me. Let's look in the real world. Modern military theory, modern tanks. There's two competing approaches. We'll call it Western and Eastern. In the West, okay, it's U.S. All right. The military thinking there is to keep, for quite a while. I don't know if it's still that way today, but I haven't read anything that's changed since their last military theory write-up. But it looks like what they're trying to do is they want to keep vehicles, or tanks, 100 meters apart, 100 meter separation. 100 meters is a long way. Now, in the East, they're going to concentrate their vehicles. They keep about a 25 meter difference in the distance between them. That's a big difference. Okay, artillery shells come raining down, and if you're 25 meters away, you're more likely to have hits on one or more vehicles more rapidly. Anti-tank guns can engage target to target more rapidly than if the tanks are deployed 100 meters apart. So let's just use those two, and I'll use those two examples as to Eastern to squadron, or Western to not squadron. Let's look at the pros and cons. There are advantages to both. Okay, so think in terms of these advantages when you decide for yourself the way you want to approach vehicles. Now, aside from the fact that you can fit more vehicles into a combined arms detachment by putting them in squadrons, yeah, I can think of a lot of vehicles where you can do that where it's beneficial. You know, land speeders, piranhas, some of the waves, it's not wave serpents, sorry, like falcons. There's a lot of smaller tanks and vehicles that you might want to squadron together to fit more of them on the table without having to buy extra troop choices to get into this really nice CAD, right? So, let's think about it. A squadron gives me multiple bodies, okay, vehicles, so it's less likely that the loss of one of those, so the loss of taking damage of taking hits on that, is going to result in first blood, because it's easy to kill one vehicle, especially with a AP2 or 1. Pop, it's gone, you've got first blood. You have a squadron of 2 or more vehicles, they got to wipe out both to get first blood out of a vehicle. So that's a very, very strong advantage. Another extremely strong advantage, especially if the vehicles have blast weapons, is the fact that they all have to fire together at the same target. Now, why is that important? Well, you get a squad of 20 Guardians out there in cover, and you've got 3 large blasts coming at it. If you were to fire one at a time and resolve each hit separately, you're going to whittle out, strength 8 to armor 3 against a 5-up cover on toughness 3 guys. You're gonna wipe through these Guardians. And well, the problem is, first shot you might get 8. Second shot, you might have some trouble placing it where you can get 8, even with a scatter. So in the third one, there's gonna be a few models left to shoot it. So put them all 3 together, you're gonna get 8 with the first one. You're gonna place each one. You could have 24 hits. just because you get to place all the hits first before you resolve any of the wounds. This played out very, very well against a what do you call this? A Wraith Guard unit. A nice squad of 10. Wraith Guard are strength 6. They're tough. I had battle cannons, and if I hit one at a time, I could wipe out a few of those. But of course, after taking out the first few, if I scattered too far, I'd only hit 1 or 2 Wraith Guard the second shot. And that means I'd have even fewer to place with the third one on. But by putting all 3 on, that's 30 hits on this tightly packed unit that just deep struck with the advantage of some Dark Eldar Web Portal. So 30 hits on Wraith Guard, wounding on 2s, no armor save. That's a gone unit. Guaranteed. Well, okay. Dice, but you can roll poorly on the dice. You can roll a lot of 1s to wound. But still, the point's that you can combine all this fire and resolve it all at once. You get more hits with the blast than you would if you had to go singly. Flamers are an even more important place to have squadrons, where you can apply all the different templates at once instead of for one at a time, wiping out a few and then slowly whittling the opponent back so that your later flamers can't reach them. Okay, so you have the ability to really flood the opponent with firepower. That's a very important advantage. Now there are some situations where you can actually have a character in one of the vehicles, and the character has an advantage, has ability that transfers to his unit. If you don't have a squadron, you can't transfer that unit to the unit, right? So there's another good advantage. Also with a character, you can theoretically do Lookout Sir, even with a vehicle. But even if you don't have a character, think of it as a squadron. If you can, as you maneuver, put different vehicles forward, so as vehicles take damage, you bring them to the back. Put fresh units forward. If you have mix of weaponry in these squadrons, you can put what I would call the more expendable vehicles forward to protect the more valuable weapon systems that you have in the same squadron. That's very valuable because unless there's a precision shot coming at you, you are able to protect your assets within the squadron. So all very, very good, valid points. Again, I don't use squadrons simply because I don't like the approach. There's some things that I don't like, but some of the cons I'm going to talk about shortly are why I don't. But it also doesn't allow me the flexibility I want. So, con number 1, the entire unit, all 3 to 5 models in there, have to shoot at the same thing. That may very well be overkill, and so you've wasted a lot of your shots. The second one is the fact that if I'm looking at a unit, a squadron, and I have to keep them 4 inches apart and no more, one large blast template can hit 2 vehicles, just like that. That means I can easily end up with, instead of one shot coming through against one vehicle, the one shot gets 2 hits because the vehicles are too close. So that's a disadvantage. The other disadvantage, especially in close combat, but even in shooting, is with vehicle squadrons, excess hits allow you to just count your way down through the vehicles. So use Venoms or any of these lighter, use Piranhas. 2 hull points, front armor 11, 12, side armor 11, rear armor 10. You do a penetrating hit on open top, you could pop the first one. Let's say you have a autocannon, strength 7, or even an assault cannon, strength 6. You're depending on a 6, and there's a lot of weapons out there. If you get multiple fire into this, you can get several hits. Let's say you have 3 or 4 hits. You can lose 3 or 4 models. You'll lose 2 because there's 4 hits, 2 hull points, if they glance, at least. That's 2 models gone. If there was only one unit, one vehicle in that squadron, those 4 hits, those 4 pens maybe, would only take out 1 vehicle. So there's a little bit of disadvantage to having these squadrons. In close combat, it's even easier to wipe out a vehicle squadron because multiple attacks, crack grenades, glancing on 4s, 10 guys, that's a whole lot of attacks against a vehicle. Hitting, you're going to wipe out potentially 2, maybe 3 vehicles, depending on how good you roll. And prior damage, that's a big con in my book. Now the advantage to the single vehicle squadron is that you can set them up in multiple parts of the table without worrying about the 4-inch thing. So I could have 2 vehicles with excellent armor-piercing weaponry, put them on either end of the table, and now I can ensure that one of those 2 is going to have side armor on the enemy vehicle coming forward. That's important because sometimes Lehman Russ, front armor's 14, side armor's 13. I would much rather go against a 13 than a 14. Every little bit helps. Orc battle wagons, who wants 20 boys unloading in their deployment zone? Their side armor's 12. So even an autocannon has a chance of doing some damage. Now granted, they're 4 hull points, but again, open top, that could cause an explosion. You can one-shot even with an autocannon. So the vehicle, 1 vehicle per unit, helps you spread the capabilities across your line, even hold some of them in reserve, so that if something goes wrong, you can readjust where it gets deployed in the later turns. So to me, it's extremely valuable to have this independence. When it comes to actually working on the table, sometimes that 4-inch gets in the way, because if I've got some terrain to go through and I have to keep my models within 4 inches, that means some of the models are, if I don't want to risk the dangerous terrain, I'm going to need to move them around and maybe put them in a position where they can't fire well. Whereas if they're separate, they don't have to be within 4 inches. I can be very, very flexible in the way they move around. So for me, I'm going to stick with the 1 model per, one vehicle model per unit, and avoid the squadrons. Now, you can't do that with the Imperial Guard tank commander, because you have to have him, and he has to take 1 tank with him as a unit. So I'm stuck there, but I think I can handle that. Because again, now here I can protect my Warlord by moving my other tank up front, or wherever closest to the most likely oncoming threat, to hopefully protect my Warlord from the next, Warlord kill. So I am giving that up when I go in, doing like the Imperial Armor Warlord, where it's just 1 command tank. You don't put it in a unit at all. So let's you can have a discussion about this. What do you guys think about where do you use squadrons? Where don't you use them? Do you mix it up? Like I said, personally, I don't. I'm not saying that's the right thing. That's the one thing I won't do here with this particular academy. It's my opinion that I choose to not run squadrons. Even piranhas, I'll run 2 separate piranhas instead of 1 unit with 2 piranhas in it. So comment below. Let me hear what you guys have to say. I want to know how you do, because you will be able to teach me some different things that I may not have thought about. And you might put it in a way that I have thought about it, but you know what? Now that you say it, it makes some sense again. Like I said in my initial intro to this series, we all learn differently, and sometimes I got to hear something a certain way for it to finally click. So feel free to comment. Let me know what you do in terms of squadrons or not the squadron. And share, like, subscribe, share us with your pets, with your friends. Let them know about it. Let's see what we come up with sharing the information, sharing our experiences, sharing our knowledge with each other. That's the goal of this academy, is to benefit each other by sharing what we know, what we've learned, what our experiences are from what we've done on the tabletop. So until next time, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time on the academy. Bye.